My clock just went off. It's 8 o'clock on the third Tuesday of the month. That means it is June 17th.
It is.
And this is DMR Tech Net TV. Tonight we have a very special guest. We've got Ben Sylvester from Canada, VE2VB. And we've been chatting before the show started. Interesting. But Ben's going to tell us a little bit of history of himself, tell us more about how we got started with BrandMeister. He's the main admin for BrandMeister Canada. And then we have, if you're with us, you can ask a question or any comments you have for Ben. It's always a lot of fun. Let me do a quick shout out to fellow DMR Tech Net TV board members here. Stan, WB8QJZ. We've got Rick, 88KN, as well as Tom, N8TJ. And hopefully more will join later. So anyway, good evening, everyone. I'm Dana, KC0MYP. We were talking about this. We don't know if we have to ID ourselves on Zoom because we're ham radio operators. We don't know, but we do it just to be safe. But without further ado, our good friend Ben from Canada, VE2VB. Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the BrandMeister.
Well, I thank you, Dana, and I say hi to everyone there tonight. There's some of the call sign that I do recognize from usual Monday's Net, Tech Net. I started into ham radio back in 1983, but I was a shortwave listener back from 1976. So from 76 to 83, I was using shortwave receiver and learning the CW and the electronics and things like that just to pass my exam. And back in 1983, got my exam and my advanced 2 years after in 1985. Um, for for many years, I've been involved into satellite amateur radio satellite communications. I've worked about everything there is above, space shuttle, the digital satellites, AO10, AO13, 21, and all of the satellites above. And then got involved with the first digital communication on ham radio when D-Star ICOM put out the first D-Star radio, the ICOM ID 800. And then later experimented with other modes, digital modes, and finally ended up with a DMR radio. So when I first started with DMR radio, we had a connection. The local repeater had a connection with DMR Mark. So DMR Mark back then had some problem. We had some problems because if you had a tug group program for using on one time slot and you wanted to use a another tug group on the same time slot, even if your local repeater was not involved in that communication, since we were connected to the same server, the time slot was busy, so we couldn't use that. And we later learned that there was an emerging network called BrandMeister, which was totally independent for each repeaters. So that sounded very interesting for us because every repeater has its own autonomy or independence. So back in, it's been a year, I told it yesterday, but back in 2015, June 15, 2015, we ended up asking two guys to build the virtual machine, the server, the BrandMeister server that we've hosted right here in the province of Quebec in a big major data center called OVH. And we're paying fees for that. I've been paying the fees for some times and then finally had some help from others. You have a lady that goes to your DMR TechNet on Mondays, which is Lucille, if I remember well. And she gave me a hint on saying, why are you guys paying for this? Because you have some part of your government that pays for these kind of activities. I don't know if it's exactly that, but And we're actually involving our local politics to see if they can pay for the hosting of the BrandMeister Canada server. So it's our 10th anniversary, and when it began, the president for BrandMeister Canada was Luke VE2 Delta Whiskey Echo, and he passed away year after. So when Luke passed away, then I took the job, and I've been doing this since. So I've been doing this for the last 9 years, and what it involves me in treating tickets, problem tickets, and helping people get connected to the BrandMeister network. So that means hotspots, repeaters, building clusters. So all kind of activities related to DMR radio and with the BrandMeister. Oh, hi, Lucille. So
Hello, Benoit.
yeah. Now, in terms of volume on the Canadian server, we actually have, as of tonight, 244 repeaters connected across Canada from coast to coast. Because being the administrator of the server is not only the server of my province, but for every province of Canada. We have 7,000 kilometers wide. Canada is as wide as the US, so it's about the same. We have 28 repeaters within the USA connected to the Canadian server. And we have other countries connected. So France has 8. We have others in China has 1. In Switzerland has 1. So just a few from foreign countries, but 28 from the US and 244 from Canada. And what we're seeing right now is we're seeing that there are other DMR networks across the country and internationally as well. But what we're seeing, if we go to the Maritimes provinces of Canada is New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Prince Edward Island. And there's only one repeater left that is not on BrandMeister. All the others have all moved to the BrandMeister network. So one repeater in Halifax, Nova Scotia, still on DMR Mark network. All the others are moving. There's probably a reason for that. BrandMeister has a server and a presence in almost every country in the world. And the way they work, you can build clusters. So do you guys know what a cluster do? What we use clusters for?
Why don't you go ahead and explain, Ben?
Yeah. Cluster, it might be something interesting for you guys. The administrator of the US server or Canada server, no matter what, if we build a cluster, that means that you can connect repeaters by only one talk group. So let's say, for example, I have built a cluster called Sorel, Sorel, which is an area around here. And we have repeaters on the south shore and on the north shore of the St. Lawrence River. So while we're mobile, we're on the north shore. We're just a little too far for the repeater located on the south shore, and same for those guys on the south side. So I've built a cluster on talk group number 8, and I just moved in that cluster zone the 2 repeaters. And even one of your repeaters in Michigan can be moved in that cluster zone. So when we go to talk group number 8, as soon as I key up my transmission on talk group number 8, the 2 repeaters on the north and on the south shore, it's like they are merged together. If you would be part of it, when the transmission goes on talk group number 8 and you move your repeater in our cluster zone, activities will, if there's activities locally from one repeater or another, you will be included in. So everything becomes local. And the only thing that exists, the only link that exists is through the cluster zone using the same tag group. That could be very useful for when you have a group and you want everyone to be connected through the tag group and no other type of links.
Question. We've got the way it was explained to us a while ago, why there was a 10-minute time limit put on talk groups, the 4-digit talk groups like 3126, which is Michigan statewide. We were told that because a number of repeater administrators made that static talk group on their repeaters, anybody on that talk group would come over their repeaters. Now, is there a difference between a cluster and that, or is that a different?
No, a cluster is in static mode. So
Okay.
that means that you don't have to activate it. If you leave your radio on tag group number 8
Mm-hmm.
and someone, either any of the repeater within that cluster zone, key a transmission, you'll hear it. So
Okay.
there is no delay. It's not like we have two type of you have the static and you have the dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamic, by the way, Rick, this has changed from 10 to 15 minutes. It was 600 seconds, and that 600 seconds came from you guys in the US, and that you modified it to 900 seconds. So that's now it's 900 seconds. That's 15 minutes active after the last transmit locally. So that means if you activate a tag group on demand, that's what we call dynamic. You press the PTT on any tag group, and you're active for 15 minutes. If anybody locally on the same tag group is not keying up or transmitting the push to talk, then 15 minutes after, it's disconnected. But it's always 15 minutes after the last push to talk being active on the repeater.
Okay.
Yeah. And to answer your question, Rick, that clusters are static, so it means that they're on all the time.
Okay.
So
Yep.
other than that, so when I started the BrandMeister Canada server, I was the only guy to handle everything, all the requests, and it was a huge work. I'm telling you. Canada-wide, 244 repeaters, and we're not counting the hotspot and things like that, personal device applications, and so on. So I said, well, I got to modify the structure, and I got to have some help from the provinces. So I ended up asking people, ham radios, in the Maritime. So VE9SC, Stephen in New Brunswick, Moncton, New Brunswick, came and he said, okay, Ben, I'm going to give you a hand, and I'll take care of all the Maritimes. So he's taking care of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and so on. In Quebec, I have VE2SFU, Martin, which is a good friend of mine, and he's actually taking the request for creating new talk groups and things like that. And in Ontario, I got Tom, VE3NY, and Rob, VE4CA in Manitoba. We got Jason, VE5 Echo Alpha in Saskatchewan, and Kerb, VE6IV in Calgary, Alberta, and Doug, VE7CQT in Burnaby, BC. So the team is bigger, and you remember we had about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a conference on DMR Tech Net, and we were talking about IP telephones.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked AMS over IP to create a conference room with PIN number, personal identification number, so that we can all connect together. So here on my console, on my what you guys are calling the sidecar, I got all the BrandMeister Canada coordinator numbers, and I got a BLF on them. So whenever one of them is using his phone, the BLF turns to red. And when we want to all talk together Canada-wide, then we go on the conference number, and we can all exchange what's coming up, what are the requests, and some of the requests are more locally within the province, but some of the requests are also Canada-wide. So, so that's about it. There's lots of activities there for BrandMeister only, I'm telling you.
Ben, could I ask a question?
Go ahead, Lucille.
Uh, if you have a power failure at your residence or your site, that affects your server. So how do you handle?
No,
How do you?
it doesn't affect.
Oh, okay.
The BrandMeister Canada server is hosted in a major data center, which has all the generator, the backup system,
Okay.
and also the security for DDoS attack and things like that. So no, we're fully protected, and we don't have power failures.
Okay.
And that's also true in most data centers worldwide on that. There's Department of Redundancy department.
Yeah, exactly.
Ben,
So-
I'm looking at the map. How many is there one master server in Canada, or is there more?
No, there's only one master server in Canada, but it's a good question because we're actually thinking of getting another one. I'm going to tell you why. We're actually using at this moment 42% of the server capacity. So there's, just as I said previously, we have 200 and make around numbers, like 260 repeaters connected to the server, and it's 42% occupied. So it means that there's room for even more, twice as much as that. The thing is, like I said, we're paying for this. There a yearly fee for hosting the server, and there's a bill coming in once a year. We have to pay for it. Now, we had an offer to host the server freely into a university in British Columbia. But to do so, that means that those 260 repeaters connected to the Canadian BrandMeister server will eventually comes to an IP address change. It wouldn't be fun, and it wouldn't be appreciated by anyone if we cut the service and said, okay, that's normal. We're just moving to another location, and the IP address will be different. This will have to engage every repeater owner and personal device owner to change their IP address in their CPS, in their code plug system. Instead of doing this, we might go for a second server at the other location and give a 1 year time frame to make the move, because we have to consider that there are some times of the year that some sites are not accessible. Say those up in the mountains and where the roads are not open in winter times. You go into snowmobile, but you won't force people to go there at winter time and says, okay, we have changed our IP address, so can you go up? And no, that would be too complicated. But if we give them a year in advance for doing the change, then it would be possible. And then we will probably end up by only having one master server left. We wouldn't keep two. We don't have traffic for two, you know. You guys in the States, you have more than one master. Yeah, I think you're up to three now. Yes.
We got 3. Mhm.
Exactly.
Cool.
This won't be the case here for many years.
And they've moved the servers around. It used to be 3101, 0203. Now it's 3102, 03, and 04. And they just moved the one in California from San Jose down to LA.
Yeah.
So, Ben, normally I go to, and he's here. Tom N8TJ is the co-founder of the DMR Tech Net. I always like to go with him for the first question. We've kind of bypassed that. And then actually we go to the second co-founder, Stan WB8QJZ. But Tom, did you have a question for Ben tonight to start the evening off?
Well, hi, Ben, and thanks for being here. Listening there, it sounds to me like, or what came to my mind, so Canada and the administration of BrandMeister, that was very interesting. But it sounds like Canada kind of procedural and architecturally, the direction and the whole network is basically different, separate. It just connects because it's a network to the United States. The actual administration, the policies aren't you guys do what you want to do, right?
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
if you want to add a server, you might add a server, you might do this and that. And you said
No, Tom, it's not as simple as that. All the masters, I mean the US masters, the 3 masters, and the Canadian masters, we cannot go on our own and decide, okay, we want a second master. You have to have a good reason for that. But you got to grant permission from PD0, tell you what, PD0ZRY. He's the guy, Rudy is the one that grant permission for adding new server. And usually what Rudy says in the past, and when I'm talking about Rudy, he's part of the few guys that has designed and built the actual BrandMeister system. So we called it the Master NL for Netherlands. And we're thinking about asking Rudy for going onto this idea of hosting the second server, and then finally it will be temporary, because at the end we will end up with only one master for Canada. For a short period of time, for maybe a 1-year period, it would be nice to have 2, but we would end up by using only 1, because we're only using 32% of its own capacity.
So you said the 244 repeaters across the whole continent. They all have whatever talk group they want to repeat, right? They all have, like Michigan has 3126.
Yeah.
I imagine there's Montreal talk group, that kind of thing. So why do you guys have you say it's a 15-minute limit now? Do you have that in Canada?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why do you have that?
We have that because we never ran into problems, and you probably didn't run into problems yourself in the States. But let's say, for example, that someone with an HD or radio and press to talk on 10 different talk groups. That would be a mess. You're right.
That'd be a bad operator. You can only talk on one frequency or one channel or one talk group at a time.
Yeah, but what happens is when you key up your transmission on any of the talk group, you activate it for 15 minutes.
Oh, I see.
You go on a second, 15 minutes on the second.
Yeah.
And then it comes to some shared times between talk groups, and now you have the what we call the hang time. So as long as there's transmission on it, the priority is given to that talk group that last being activated. But when the hang time goes down and you activate it within that 15 minutes period time frame, you activated another talk group and there's activity on that one. So it would become, I'm telling you, a mess, a total mess.
Because one repeater might have 2 talk groups active, or you know, it would never hang up that talk group. It would never disconnect.
Nope.
And you know, because
unless you send a 4,000 command.
Right.
So that's why we're teaching our people here, when you're using a talk group that usually is not used by others. Say, for example, you want to go and talk to someone in China, then you go and press the push to talk. But once you have finished that conversation or your test, send a 4,000 command to disconnect it and make the repeater be free for everyone else.
Yeah, that's just kind of normal operating procedure.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, it's you've made a mistake.
Sure.
Someone else would do it. But the static talk groups, I guess I always thought it was because the repeaters around Michigan, they're on 3126 all the time, and it's a static connection. It never unhooks. So it doesn't matter. You can't 4,000. That repeater is going to push that traffic through, transmit it through its antenna and amplifiers, no matter what you do. So the 10-minute limit was explained to us as you're going to burn up the amplifiers on these repeaters. The duty cycle cannot handle the mode. It can't handle the digital transmission just by the way it operates, which never has made sense to me.
When you got your repeater, your talk group onto static mode, say for example, I don't know what the call sign of your repeater is, but any call sign of any repeater being programmed through the self-care account as static on 3126, whatever, even if you send a 4,000 command, it won't disconnect because within the server, it's being connected all the time. And you tell whatever, if there's ever activities on 3126, go on the air and go ahead and transmit. One thing that when we started to map the Canadian provinces, differently probably than the States, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure because you guys seems to have kept your first call sign, and even though if you move areas, you can still keep your personal call sign. That's not the case here. So I've worked on it. That's part of me there. The maritime provinces are VE1, Victor Alpha 1, and Victor Echo 1. Quebec is VE2, and Ontario 3, 4, 5, and 6 up to the West Coast. So all the talk groups of Canada, they are mapped based on the call sign prefix. So our server is 3021. So that is Canada. So 3021 are talk groups from the Maritimes. 3022 and other numbers are from Quebec, 3023 Ontario, and we keep moving that way. So we have a good mapping, a logical mapping of talk groups based on call sign prefix of the province.
Ben, I've got a question from. Make sure I heard this. Yeah, I heard this correctly. So if I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, call sign over there would be like a 1.
VE1,
the zone. If I move, say, to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, that would be like a VE3. I'd have to change a VE5.
Yeah. You have to report yourself to your here it's called Industry Canada and Science. That's the equivalent of your FCC. So we have to inform our FCC here in Canada that we have moved from one location to another, and usually we have a certain amount of time to be with the call sign of the province. That was true. It's still true today, but that was true. If you were moving to Ontario, then your VE1 call sign would become a VE3 with another call sign.
That is
In
interesting.
the States, you now keep your call sign whatever you move, right?
That's the way it used to be. Stan would normally, in the old days, he'd be WBAQJZ/4. He'd have to say portable 4. Now
Okay.
they just let you be whatever you want to be.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kinda weird.
and yeah, my call sign with the 0, that was because I was licensed in Colorado. That's right. But I kept I'm back in Michigan, but I still kept the 0 on that.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
That's what I understood.
And I used to be WA3TUU. I got my license in Pennsylvania, but I upgraded and changed to an 8. So,
Well, what I do remember is call sign with 7, like KH7 or KL7 was Alaska,
mhm.
and a WH6 was Hawaii, right? But for the rest, I can't tell you. It's like VE8 in Canada. It's the Northwest Territories.
Yeah, yeah. Huh.
Lucille has a question, I guess. Your
Well,
microphone is muted.
you're muted, Lucille. You got to un.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that thank you very much, Ben, for the session, and for Dana for putting it on. But I have another Zoom at 8:30, so I've got to say goodbye. So
Bye,
thank you
Lucille.
very much for the information. Bye now.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you, Lucille.
Thank you.
Bye, Lucille.
Bye.
Stan, if you want to unmute yourself, let's go with Stan with another question from another one of our DMR Tech Net founders.
Well, going back to the server question we had, you say you have one server. Are you load balancing at that location so there are actually physically more than one piece of hardware that's the actual server, or is it just one item? And a related question, do you have a backup? Do you run a parallel backup server
Yeah.
in case something goes down, it will revert?
Our latest update was 133 days ago. So the reboot, because we applied a Debian 12 update, then it's been 133 days now. Do we have a backup? Yes, of course we have a backup, because that's one of the big advantage of doing business with major hosting the server in major data center. Because like I said, you have redundancy, you have backups, you have attacks from DDoS attack, which is probably what it is, and we also have power generator. So we it's almost impossible that we go down. We were advised by our data center a couple of months ago, early spring, that they had themselves to do a major updates on their host site. That's been one of the first time in 10 years. It went down. We were advised before, way before they've done it, but it was the first time that we had a service interruption. And it lasted like 15 minutes. 15
Good
minutes.
track record. That's a very good track record.
Yeah, sure. No, we're pretty satisfied with that.
Ben, what does a typical day for you when you're doing BrandMeister stuff? Because I know you're a volunteer, you're not getting paid for it, but
Yeah, right.
what type of policies, procedures, or things do you have to do to make sure the network's running smooth?
Well, we do have alerts on our system if there's memory run out of memory, or but it's not happening. We have an alert system that sends you email. But when someone wants to have a problem, or wants to have a new talk group, or whatever the request that could be, there is a ticket system. Opening up a ticket is okay. What is it you want? Your call sign, and you got a sign number called by BNM. So that's the ticket number. And I received an email saying that KC0MYP. I'm only treating the Canadian tickets, even though that sometimes I'm giving you hands on debugging people in your area, I have to read those requests, and then I go on the server and I help these guys. So locally, I'm known from everybody almost across Canada, because many people are knowing me because of the Canada wiki page, BrandMeister Canada wiki page. My informations are over there. And let's say that with the coordinators in each province, it's about 30 minutes job a day, about half an hour a day. Treating the tickets, going into the server, responding to it. It's about 30 minutes. It's not that much. I'm telling you. Sometimes if you have, what is more heavy is, just to give you an example, I told you that most of the repeaters, all the repeaters from the Maritimes, they moved on BrandMeister. So when the guys went up into the repeater site in the mountain, and they called me, says, Ben, it doesn't want to connect. Okay, well, what is the problem? So do you got the right IP address? Do you have internet connection? Have you checked the internet? Are you sure you got it? So once everything has been analyzed, then you stay on the phone. And one of the guys lately, I stayed 4 hours on the phone with him trying to find where the problem was. And you know what? Do you want to know what the problem was? When the guy didn't put his call sign in the repeater, he says VE1 question mark, and he had it next to it, White Mountain. So how does it work? The repeater, the ID and the call sign are validated through radioid.net. RadioID.net says, oh, ID number and call sign, it match. Okay, you can transmit on BrandMeister network. But that guy has added the name of the mountain where the repeater site was. So when Radio ID was validating the call sign, it says it doesn't match, because the call sign is V1XYZ, and we got V1XYZ White Mountain. So it didn't want to validate it, so it was not working. But we had to go into the log and see what was the failure, where the problem was coming from. Just analyzing everything and making are you sure the code plug is being written correctly? And it took 4 hours to the guys up on the mountain, and I was on the phone, on my cell phone. So these are little tricks that happens like this, but you learn, and you just make yourself more careful when newer ones comes in and say, oh, okay, if you only have your ID with your call sign and nothing else next to it, so we're saving problems. It saves us some problems.
Interesting. That is very interesting on that. If you want to share a screen, show us what you see on your, I'd love to see it right there, but I'm sure there's other questions. And I see Dave, N8SBE, who always has a question. Dave, we've got Ben from BrandMeister Canada, the main admin up there, and I'm sure you've been doing radio for a while. I'm sure you have a question. Would you like to take the podium?
Well, I don't know that I really have a question as per se. I got in here kind of late because I was at a Zoom call with the local radio club making our plans for field day, and we just got off of that. So I think I'll pass on this one. But I did download the note that you sent out, and I'll be looking over that soon. So it has all the information on it. So thank you.
You just brought up something. Ben, in Canada, do you guys have, a week from Saturday is when the U.S. does field day per the FCC and the ARRL. Does
Yep.
Canada have a similar day like that?
Yes, exactly. We have two. Yep. is it on the 29th? I guess, I
The,
think.
the 28th and the 29th of
Yeah,
this year.
same day for us here. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, local guys it's always the same guys that attend to that. They do install, they have a camping not far from here with a very wide field. They put 160 meters antenna with wires, and they do contest, the field day contest. I have to cross the river, take the ferry boat, and it's not because it's far, it's not far. Line of sight is about 15 miles, 21 kilometers, somewhere around that. But there's a lot of people in there, and sometimes you have to wait 2 to 3 ferry to get on the boat and cross the river. Oh yeah, yeah, I'm telling you. So a video conference like on Zoom or Teams, things like that, saves a lot of traveling and cost also related to it.
Interesting. Vance, you always have comments and questions. I'll bet you'd like to ask Ben something.
Well, thank you, thank you. Is my audio on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Based on my previous experience working, heaven forbid I'd have to do that again, but you're dealing with two things where your problems come up. One is your data center problems, and those are minimal because you're in a enclosure with 40,000 gallons of gas that lasts 3 days, as the state of Ohio did. But a lot of times the problem is the outbound network. And we'll say, Thunder Bay and 45 miles surrounding it
Yeah.
might not have a good communications network. Are you prepared for how to shift people from one place to another,
No,
based
actually,
on the networking?
no, actually not. Actually, it's all based on the capacity of the data center to provide full-time services 24/7. We don't have a kind of emergency switch over to another site. No, that because it would involve of changing IP address of sites as well. So
Sure,
people would
sure.
people would probably be not ready to go and make on the spot an IP address change in their code plug and rewriting it into the repeaters.
Okay.
Well, but there's one thing, a good question. By the way, what's your call, Vince?
Kilo Charlie 8, Romeo Golf Oscar. Kind children ate real good oatmeal.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't live in Michigan anymore, but I lived on the Keweenaw Peninsula for 35 plus years. And with WinLink, I was providing a relay service. And I had about 400 contacts a month that I was transferring out of the Thunder Bay and Northwood area. But it went all the way out to Oregon and Manitoba and other places that
Mhm.
I was able to relay, the WinLink messages.
One thing that we're actually looking at, and I don't see why it wouldn't be possible, but one thing we're looking at when you have your WSPD, you know what that is, or Pi
Oh,
Star.
the
Yeah,
WPSD, the dashboard for a hotspot.
yeah, that WPSD, which is the older Pi Star image system. You see, when you go into the server, you decide what server you want your device to connect on, whether it's the hotspot or the repeater.
Mhm.
Uh, Actually, we select Canada 3021.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're looking at, if we go to a second server, if there would be a way of just making the transfer to 3021 with transparency of the users. So it wouldn't change a thing for them to,
Right.
they would still be selecting 3021, but it would be on a different server with the same server ID.
Yep. Yep.
And we're looking at it now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, KE8NJT, you've been listening awful quiet. Why don't you unmute yourself? Do you have a comment or a question for Ben?
Well, those of you that know me know that quiet is an unusual thing. So I've been trying to practice. One thought occurred to me this afternoon, and I'm not trying to cast anything disparaging on our folks here in this country. We have a ban. 3126 has a ban on foreign folks coming in and using it. And I've never really got a good answer for that. Is that something that you have in Canada also? In other words, someone from Brazil would not be able to call 3021 and just to see if there was anybody that they could talk to and then go to another talk group.
No, you know what, Brian? Actually, it's the minding of BrandMeister NL is to allow everyone to go anywhere and connect to any server. Some of the requests that I've received is, would it be possible to limit the use of on a specific repeater? Would it be possible to limit the use of only one talk group? Because what happens in some of the repeaters in the western provinces of Canada is that they have people speaking different language, not understood by everyone, using talk groups for specific language. Let's say German, Latino, whatever it is. And those guys says, well, our repeater is actually busy on some of the language that we're not talking. And it could also come from those foreign countries talking on your local repeater. That would be the same would apply to you if you want to go to use a talk group on another country. So actually, we have no control on that because the main idea of BrandMeister is to allow everyone to go anywhere, anytime. No, the only control that we have is that if someone is using illegally repeater, we can block the ID and it won't be able to use his ID on any repeater, any device, any hotspot. If the ID is blocked, and there's nothing that guy can do.
Steps to your day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser.
Thank you.
That's run. Okay.
Here we go. Hopefully, yeah. And Brian, by the way, they have unblocked statewide Michigan 3126 and 31266 and others from other countries. So as Ben says, you can now use those. You weren't restricted if you weren't in Michigan at the time.
No, you're not.
But to explain that comment, I've been on a hiatus for a while. So
professionally, while I was working for the Quebec Provincial Police, we were using P25 system. And P25 system has features that DMR doesn't. On P25, you can create areas. And if you go out of these areas, you cannot use it. You cannot use the repeaters. You have to be on the right channel, but you cannot use any talk group on any repeaters. They call it sectorized.
Interesting. Who else has a comment or a question for Ben? And Ben, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one more comment about P25 compared to DMR. P25 has, I don't know how you call the service in your police department when they follow a suspect. and they can follow the suspect throughout the entire country. So here we have that. So we have investigators undercover following a suspect, but they want to keep contact with their team. So we have specific talk groups on P25 that is province-wide. And as soon as they change the areas, the repeaters locally gives the priority to this talk group, whatever they're located in the province. So P25 has some extra features that DMR doesn't have. Go ahead, Dana.
That's it. And I was going to say, Tom, N8TJ, always talks about with DMR how it was started as a commercial system and then later ported to amateur usage and other stuff right there. So it's got some unique characteristics or flavors to go with it. Tom, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that? And one thing also, and while Tom does it, I know that Rick had mentioned it. You've heard a little bit. There are 51 talk groups in America. It's the 50 state talk groups, the 4-digit ones, that they do have a 10-minute limit. We're not talking static dynamic, but it's a 10-minute limit. A QSO from start to the last person, it doesn't matter how many you have, is finished unless it's a net. But that caused us a little bit of contention. And Ben, by the way, thank you also for helping get Steve KW0Z so he could use BrandMeister to join us for TechNet a month or so ago.
Yep.
But yeah, I was talk group banned over 2 years ago because multiple reasons, but we finally got that resolved. But Tom, let me throw it over to you with continuing with your comments or questions.
Oh, very good. Well, it was very interesting listening to Ben. Very cool. And I always wondered how much time, half an hour a day, that's pretty cool, all the automated stuff. You got it down to a science, basically, for letting it run. It sounds huge. To me, I was a server administrator 20 years ago, and it was a lot different. So just the whole concept of administrating a digital network, voice network, is just sounds big to me. So pretty fascinating. And that's a whole other skill set besides operating DMR. That's for sure. It's a whole other side of the effort. It's just so bizarre that the low bands are just Mother Nature. Mother Nature administrates the low bands, and if it's thunderstorms, it's going to be crackly. Whereas DMR propagates digitally across cables and sometimes RF.
Yep.
Fascinating. So I enjoyed listening to you explain it, Ben. Thanks for doing it. I learned about. I always liked Nova Scotia and things like that, and I'll call them the Maritimes now. I didn't know that's what you called it.
30205 is the actual maritime talk group, and it's Stephen, our maritimes coordinator, asked for it. He says we'd like to have a talk group where every guys in the Maritimes could all talk together at the same place, and we've created 30205. But there's one thing you have to know. When I mean there is no restrictions, I mean there is no restrictions. I'm going to give you an example of that. Say, for example, Tom, that you want to talk with Stan, and totally on an unexpected talk group. Say talk group 50122. And you enter that into your radio, and Stan does the same number. And you make a push to talk. You two guys are going to talk together. It's not going to be private because host line, a BrandMeister host line, will retransmit it.
Yeah.
Just some of the people will notice and say, hey, what is that talk group people are talking on? It doesn't exist. but you have no restriction using it. It would probably not be logic, but there is no restriction to it. And many people are not aware of that any talk group can be used anytime. And one other waste that people are making of using DMR is the fact that some of the people you tell guys, okay, our local talk group is 3022. That's the province-wide, like your Michigan-wide talk group, 3126. Ours is 3022. 302 Canada to Quebec. So you understood that. You tell guys, put it on time slot 2. Use the time slot 2 for that talk group. One of the guy comes and says, oh, I've put time slot 1 and it works. Yes, of course it works. It works on time slot 1 and it works on time slot 2. You're just wasting one of the 2 time slots because people are using the same conversation for the same communication on 2 different time slots. So leave one, and it's just a local agreement with your users using the repeaters, the local repeaters that are you using time slot 1 or 2 for 3126?
Well, that's related to a repeater. And that is what like the MI5 network here, which is a Michigan-based non-BrandMeister, it's its own network, but it's got a bunch of repeaters, I don't know, 25 or so all across Michigan, and very, very much the first talk group, which is called 51, is always on time slot 1, and then time slot 2 can be whatever, and that's for the same reason right there, emphasizing keeping the open time slot, because otherwise, you're right, you're wasting DMR. You use half the space and then waste the other half. So I think that's I've always heard of that as a general thing. Usually if you read about a repeater, it says, or usually it's like time slot 2 is BrandMeister, time slot 1 is something else to that effect, but it's the same effort that you're saying is don't waste the second time slot.
That's right.
Here in my house with the hotspots, everything's time slot 1.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tom, how many talk groups do you think there is on the BrandMeister network?
Oh, I don't even know I couldn't even tell you. I'm not a talk group hound. I use a couple of them and that's about it. But I don't know, man, 10,000? How many?
No.
250,000 or so.
No, just to tell you, there are a little more than 16 million.
Wow.
16 million. Okay. Now,
because it can be any number, like you just said.
Because that could be any number, but the sequence from the first till the last includes 16 more millions.
That's registered, documented talk groups?
No. They're
openings. It's openings for talk.
Usable. You can
Usable.
use. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, let me take you guys back 10 years ago. Do you remember while there was reflectors?
Like in DMR, in D-Star?
Yeah. When we were on DMR, 10 years ago, we were using reflectors. Do you remember that?
That was before I was on DMR, but reflectors are inherent in the language of a lot of digital voice, like in System Fusion and in D-Star still. And D-Star was the first.
Exactly. But you know what? We were using, 10 years ago, we were using reflectors, and reflectors had very short numbers, and they were related to talk groups.
Yeah.
The reason for using reflectors is because we could have used some of the hotspots. They were only having one time slot, and by using the reflector on time slot 1, they were able to go on some of the talk groups that they were on time slot 2 by using the reflector. So since now we have to stick everything together, I told you there were 16 million talk groups and there were reflectors. Now we said, since there are almost more than 16 million talk groups, then use the time slot 1 for mostly all the talk groups. But the one that you're using the most, use it on time slot 2. So that's how we adopted the system, by using time slot 2 for the local talk group, since the little hotspot with only one antenna and only one time slot was only able to go on time slot 1. So reflector, finally, it was a special system. They had to do maintenance on the reflector server, and it ended up that they closed down the reflectors. So there's no more reflectors. And when we were using reflectors, we had to go through talk group number 9. Okay, one good question. Who am I going to pick for that one? Vince, if you want to talk from one radio DMR to another DMR person on direct, simplex, what talk group will you be using if you want to do simplex on DMR?
Good question. Wish I knew.
You wish you knew, eh?
Because I've got people in Arizona that it's private calls,
Yeah.
and that's what you're talking about, right?
I mean, if you are in the neighborhood of Stan and you want to talk to Stan locally on simplex without using repeaters or hotspot and things like that, just radio to radio, what talk group will you be using? Stan, you got the answer?
Talk group number 9, I
Yeah.
assume.
9.
99.
Okay.
99. Okay.
99? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only one that allows simplex radio to radio communication.
So that means it doesn't route or whatever.
It doesn't route anything. It's radio to radio. Back to
That
net
is-
control.
That is, I was going to say 9. I thought it was talk group 9.
No. 99.
9 is what Shark RF open spots use 9 to repeat cross moding. Talk group 9 is what you're listening to. You've got to have a receive group in your CPS on 9. I think it defaults, it does it or something for you, but 9 is like a listening type. Shark RF uses 9. So if you were on 9, you might mess that up. Very good.
In the talk group for the cluster, you can't use any. You got through 2, 3, 8, and I'm not sure if 9 is part of those, but there's only a few numbers that we can use for clusters. So you can repeat the same cluster numbers, but only one in the zone, of course, but the cluster zone. Say, for example, if you're using talk group 8 for our zone here in the area, you can reuse talk group 8 for another cluster zone, but not in the same zone.
Ben, I have a question. You talked up there's like up to 16 million talk groups are available.
Yeah.
We were told, and this is probably true with Canada also, if you want to create your own talk group or want a talk group for your club, whatever, in the US they said no, use the repeater ID, the 6-digit number, or use your 7-digit DMR ID. What is that also the case, the rule up in Canada?
Our policy is very similar to that because we don't want to multiply talk groups endlessly. We want to use, you want a new talk group and you have your own repeater. It belongs to you. You're the trustee, you're the owner of that repeater. You can use your repeater ID as the talk group. And many people have done it here in Canada. But no, we do not recommend. That's the reason why I told you just a couple minutes ago that I told you that you can go on any talk group, and if you put the same number within 2 radios, you're going to talk together, but it's not recommended to do that because what would happen if you're on host line, that will be fine, but nobody will have a code plug ready with that unexpected talk group that you're talking on.
Yeah, we feel lucky. In the US, we're told, sorry, we don't have new talk groups. We were lucky they gave us 131.266
But
for our net.
I'll tell you what, Dana. Here we have requests for new talk group. The question I'm asking, how many people will be using it? Would it be active? Because if you're asking me to give you a new talk group, and one other thing, you got a guy there in the state called Corey, November Fox 3 Echo N3FA. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Corey is one of the U.S. administrator of BrandMeister. Corey has also an extra function, which is the naming of the talk group database. So Corey is able to go into the naming database and give a talk group number an official name. So whatever you want to call it, 31266, so you want it to appear in the different systems to be DMR Tech Net Michigan. So you can ask Curry, 31266 is the DMR Tech Net system. If you do that for 30227, you'll see it's called Technique and Tech Talk. So if you do a search for that, you'll see it's officially named like that. So before we issue a new talk group upon request, it has to be validated for, is this going to be used, or could we use, or could you use any of the existing talk group and maybe a new vocation? Maybe the talk group that we're using for our DMR TechNet is 30227. And on that talk group used to be called for holes, OWLs. Late guys, the guys that were talking late at night and the rag chew things, but the rag chew number one guy has passed away. And since he passed away, nobody were using the talk group anymore. So I said, okay, well, you want a talk group? 30227 is no longer used, so that's going to be renamed. Instead of whole guys, it's going to be renamed Tech Talk, Technical Talk.
That is cool. In fact, Stan, WB8QJZ, for when they first gave us the talk group, and that was a couple of years ago, and Corey was the one. And interesting character. He's helped us out quite a bit. But Stan was Johnny on the spot. They had spelled Michigan wrong for Michigan Net. Stan, you want to tell the story?
Oh, you can tell a story, during Dana.
Nah,
You
Stan,
tell it better than I do.
Because I'm sitting over there. They spelled Michigan wrong. It's like, well, it's kind of important to us being in the state of Michigan. But Stan, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we've got a hold of Corey, and Corey corrected. And we found Corey very, very easy to work with. He happened to drop in on one of our Zoom sessions one night, and we talked to Corey for like 4 hours, and he was like, "Well, you want a talk group? What do you want it? How about this number? What do you want to call it?"
Yeah.
Okay, you have a talk group. And we also got the Michigan TAC group too, 3124. They're 31264. And that was something that we didn't have before. And it's like, wow, no one can get a talk group. But look what Corey gave us. Now we got to make sure we use these things.
Well,
And that was pretty cool.
the only thing that Curry might have done is just to give your new talk group number a name, because, like I said, every talk group you can go on and is going to work.
And Corey told us that he actually created a TAC channel, a talk around channel in every state, because not every state had that. And that's why, as Dan mentioned, 31264 is the Michigan TAC channel. But
So is you guys in the States the emergency number 911 just like us here in Canada? It is. So what I've done with coordination with Radio ID, we have reserved for every province with their own prefix. So 302.2.911, 302.3.911, 302.4.911, and 302.911 as well. Say, for example, you got a flooding or you got a weather storm, hurricane, things like that, and you want to have a specific talk group for making amateur radio communication in collaboration with the emergency people, then 302.911 and 302.2.911, every province has its 911 channel for emergency communications. You have that too? No? Don't?
I do not know. Anyone else on the broadcast have an idea?
No.
I was gonna.
That would be a good idea. I just tell you
great
that
idea.
That would be a good idea.
Question regarding that talk group 99, the radio to radio.
Yeah.
Is there a preferred time slot for that?
I think you got to use time slot 1.
Time slot 1. Okay.
Yeah. We have that here. We're making simplex communication with some of the guys around here. It's just like going on 146.52 and talking to the neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got to get out of here. Thanks a lot, Ben. I appreciate all your.
Thank you, Rick. Well, what I appreciated is that I'm now putting a face on some of the call signs that I hear on Monday nights.
Yep, and we'll talk to you Monday night, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks.
Back to you, Dana.
Yeah, is there anyone else that has a question? We've kind of gone past our 1 hour limit on that. Anyone else have a final question for Ben while we still have his undivided attention?
For you to demand.
Well, just to comment, a big thank you for putting this on.
This isn't just about Israel. All of Israel's neighbors.
Whoever's got the background noise, turn that down.
Nuclear program dismantled.
That's Ron, I guess.
I think that's Ron.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, that comes through over here. Vance, your comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a big thank you for putting this on. It really gave me a bunch of information that I was lacking, and so I'll only need a reminder about once a week. I'll be 80 in November of this year, so once in a while I need to refurbish my mind. But this was a lot of net new, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you for your comments. Very generous.
Yeah, and on behalf of the entire Michigan One DMR Tech Net team, Ben, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. We will get this transcribed and get it posted on the Michigan One DMR Tech Net YouTube channel, as well as also on our website.
You're welcome.
With that, yeah, with any final thoughts or comments, Ben, from you before we wind it out?
Brian has a question, I guess.
No, just a quick comment. I didn't have a chance to do this before we got started, but I want to thank Ben and most of all, welcome him to the 5th largest maple producing state in the world.
After Canada?
After Canada.
Okay, very good. Well, I did appreciate, first, it was an invitation that came from Dana, and like you probably noticed, every Monday, not all Mondays, but when I can and when I'm around here, I make the effort to log and go to your DMR Tech Net. Always appreciate that. Very interesting topics that we've already seen. Hotspots configuration, IP telephones, and those are all technologies that is used around here in my shack, and I appreciate that. And you guys are very, very warm welcome to me. So it's a pleasure of accepting doing this tonight, and we can repeat it in a couple of months.
Don't forget the hockey game tonight, Ben.
No, I know. Well, what's the score now?
It's 1-0. Florida's ahead. I've been cheating over here watching.
No, we're done. I'm sure we're done. You
I'm
got the
rooting for
Stanley Cup
Edmonton.
on your side.
I'm rooting for Edmonton, actually. I'm not a big Miami fan, so
Yeah, well, but you know, Oilers is quite a distance from here, but at least they're Canadian, so it's like Canada against the US, you know?
yeah, yeah.
And I married a gal whose maiden name is Skinner. We live on Skinner Highway here in Diamondale. And in about 1774, when our Revolutionary War was beginning, a branch of the Skinner family went into Canada. And I have got many of them on the family genealogy. I have not proved that this young man that's goalie on the Canadian team is a cousin, but I really feel like he is. So I'm part Canadian. So thanks for everything you did tonight.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and my mother's side of the family, they are from Canada.
What part?
I don't know because actually they were in France and then France came over to Canada. Their last name was Perry, Pery, but that's the American spelling. It was something different over in France. But when
Yeah,
they got over here,
Perrier in French spells P-E-R-I-E-R, Perrier. Just like the water. This yeah, Perrier water.
Interesting. All right, Ben, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And as I said, we'll get it posted. And for everyone that also joined us tonight, thank you for joining us with your comments and questions because amateur radio is worldwide. And
Sure
thank
is.
you for joining us tonight with that.
Thank you very much to all of you, and looking forward to be on the next Monday's net.
Sounds
Great.
good. 73s from KC0 MYP and the Michigan 1 DMR Tech Net team.